This is Beyond Influential, with Brittany Crystal. Join Brittany as she chats with today's thought leaders about the power of influence, how it's developed, and how they get us to consume both on and offline. Here's your host, Brittany Crystal.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Beyond Influential. I'm excited to welcome to the show Manu Goswami, aka Swish to the show. I hope I didn't butcher your name. He's a
perfect.
youth ambassador, a TEDx speaker, an entrepreneur who's a real entrepreneur who actually had a company acquired, venture capitalist, Fortune 500 consultant, and more. Welcome.
Thank you. Really appreciate you having me on.
So I know you're a crazy multi-hyphenate. Can you give a little bit about your background and describe what you do now?
Yeah. So born in Singapore, beautiful country. If anyone has been there, let me know because I love meeting fellow Singaporeans. But yeah, it's a perfect place, very competitive, kind of got a competitive edge there. Moved to Canada when I was 8 years old to Calgary, which I currently am here for the week to see my mother, who I haven't seen in ages. So I'm really happy about that. After I spent 8 to 18 here in Canada and grew up debating, dancing, playing a lot of basketball, playing cricket, and then dabbled a bit in entrepreneurship to be able to make some money on the side to do things that I couldn't do when I just simply got a pocket money every month. So that was buying really ridiculous stuff like a Nintendo DS or a hoverboard or whatever. I joined a program called Junior Achievement, which I was the youngest person to ever get accepted to that program. I was 13. It was mainly for high school, university students, but did really well in the program, got nationally recognized through that, started really speaking a lot, got a bigger platform to be able to build a social venture that eventually got partnered with the World Bank, so an international organization, which was also cool. And that's kind of where I started to dabble into the work with the United Nations, doing a bit more work in terms of my speaking, really trying to take my story, the things I'd learned over the last 4 to 5 years and putting it to students and telling them you can do it, but here's my story. And I'm not just going to motivate you. I'm going to actually try to inform you about what you can actually do. And that kind of prompted me to go to university because that's the casual route that every basic Indian parent wants you to go through. Essentially went to college, realized wow, this system is not going to help me. I'm going to have to do something for myself as well, take a bit more self-initiative. I have no disrespect to college. I think it's very important. But for me, I was so all up in move fast, get things done. So I got DM'd by a basketball player called Trevor Booker in my first year, met him, which was surreal because I legitimately always wanted to be a basketball player, and meeting one in person who was tall and wore his practice jersey to the dinner and made everyone look at us was really fun and cool. We built a wearables company with him on our advisory board. Eventually was able to sell it to a wonderful company that had the hardware potential to take the software we built and really potentially make some moves in the NBA. Hopefully I'll be able to talk about it more in a year or so when their name is more public and when the technology does get implemented within the NBA. But it's really exciting to be able to see what's going on within analytics and data within the NBA specifically. Currently moved to New York mainly to be able to close that deal. Doing a lot of LinkedIn work, of course, as a youth editor, coming on board onto Trevor's venture capital firm, being an associate sourcing deals from young founders there. And then recently started working with my roommate, Elliot Robinson, to take Dunk, which is a media network of over 10 million followers, mainly situated towards basketball, and build it into a full-fledged media company that does brand promotion and consulting. So I'm sorry if I took too long there. That was my story. But yeah, that's me. I'm Swish.
And for listeners who don't know, you're 20 years old, right?
Yeah, I turned 20 in April. It was I don't know. Whenever people say that, I'm always damn, I feel so old. And then they're shut up, Swish. I genuinely though almost cried when I turned 20 because I was oh, my teenage years are over. Oh no. And then my mom slapped me. Yeah.
You've definitely lived a lot of life in your 20 years. So when did you first realize you could influence people just in general? Did you have a moment?
I wouldn't say I had one moment, but I'd say debate was my first entry point towards influencing people. Part of what you do in debate is you get a topic and you have a side that you're given. Sometimes you don't even agree with the side, but you have to debate it, which I really love because it exposes you to multiple perspectives. And then when you come up with arguments, you're trying to present it to 3 judges and directly influence their opinion. And the more and more I started doing well in debate, the more and more I realized, like, why can't I take my thoughts that are on topics that maybe I'm not forced to debate, but I want to be a part of and I want to participate in, and start influencing people around me in a persuasive way, in the same way I do for judges. So that was like one thing off the bat. And then I think secondly was probably when social media started to really erupt, when my friends were on Facebook and like so many people were posting. I kind of wanted to get into the mix as well. And I felt that just by people liking your post or people commenting on your post, you were intrinsically affecting the way they thought or trying to prompt them to think about whatever you're saying in a better way. So that was one way I was able to be like, yes, I might have a bit of influence nowadays.
So how old were you when you started doing debate?
7 years ago. So simple math would say that's 13. Yeah.
So when they teach you how to, like, I assume that there's probably a debate class and they teach you how to debate. What makes an argument compelling? Or did you actually just learn kind of on your own, testing it out with judges?
Yeah, so there's no debate class. There's a debate club in school. When I was a part of the Minister of Education Advisory Council in Canada, I was pushing for debate to be a course, like a class, because I generally think it's one of the most important things that any student growing up can learn. I had an older brother, though, who got me into it, and he was and he actually still is the best debater I know. He like won worlds in high school, went to the world's final in university, is currently a lawyer at the Ontario Court of Appeal. Like, he's a badass, he's amazing. And I think both of us would agree that what makes an argument compelling is A, being reasonable. Like, it's a simple thing with marketing and selling as well. You can't come up front and just give all your prices and try to push a sale. You have to be very, very reasonable about here's what we can do, here's what we can't do, and here's where we can potentially work together. That's the same thing with debate as well. It's like you have to concede that there are going to be flaws within your side, that your side isn't perfect, but you have to try to more sell the advantages and make them sound a lot better than they actually are. That's really what debate comes down to. And then the second thing is, I think what makes an argument really compelling, the root of it, is listening. A lot of times, if you listen more to what the other side is saying and pick up on weaknesses they have, it makes your argument 10 times more compelling, because your argument isn't existing in a vacuum anymore. It's not like I'm giving an argument and saying, here's my argument, and I don't give a shit about anybody else's opinion, but I'm actually listening to what they're saying, and I'm adapting my argument to situate their beliefs and potentially even be confrontational to what they think. So any argument that comes up in the way of saying the other side said blank, but here's what I think, is just a lot more reasonable. At least then a judge wouldn't see that you're being biased and that you're actually taking in both opinions when you make an argument.
I actually think that's a really good point. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a lawyer, and people always ask me if is it anything like what I currently do. And I think marketing and branding is kind of exactly the same. It's about crafting a compelling argument or telling a story and using facts to convince people of something, or not even facts necessarily, but
yeah,
you can make emotional appeal. But I do think that I totally agree with you. The strongest point is making it logical. And it's like, oh yeah, of course I'll buy this. Or of course I think this about this person.
Yep. You went to Georgetown, right? I did. Yes. I did look that up. Yeah, that's very impressive. Congrats.
I don't think I'm as good a debater as your brother, but
hey, you made it to Georgetown Law. Yeah. You probably are.
So as far as your education, then, if you're still in college, I'm sure, you've sold this company. I'm sure you're speaking, you're doing all this entrepreneurial stuff. I'm sure you get people your age or younger asking about dropping out of college or staying in school. What advice do you give to people your age or younger who ask you about dropping out or if they should quit?
Yeah. So I'm very much pro college. So what I would say is the only time you should consider dropping out is if you have a very clear alternative that within 2 years you're going to be making more money than that degree that you got, or within 4 years. Like right now I'm 2 years away from graduating, so I'm saying 2 years, but assuming that I can get a first year entry job of my degree of like 80 to 100,000, the only way I would ever reasonably think of dropping out is if I can make 5 to 10 times that amount in a single year. That's my standard. I think people can know what I mean, right? Just have a clear alternative. Don't say I'm dropping out to start a business. That is the worst thing you could possibly say. It needs to be like, I'm dropping out to go a lot further in this idea that I've already established and worked on for like a year or so. Because I think a lot of people shit on college, and it's a cool thing to do when you're an entrepreneur, and especially when you've made it. And it's something that I've taken exception to, the people like Gary Vaynerchuk, whatever, like phrasing is so important. I know that Gary doesn't believe that college is useless. He went to college for 4 years at a really shitty college too. Like, he legitimately knows that college is not like useless, but at the same time, a lot of people like him suffer from a problem of phrasing, which is how do you articulate what is good about college and what is bad about college and who that caters to. And at the end of the day, like if I had to advise a student, it would just be like, this is a very case by case basis. You have to evaluate your own life. There's no absolute statements. But at the end of the day, college does have benefits, especially if you don't know what you want to do in life. And more importantly, if you want to be an entrepreneur, a lot of people think college and entrepreneurship don't align. And I actually think they do in many cases. Like many colleges allow you to be able to meet people who could be potential co-founders. They have incubators on campus. They have grants that they can give to you to start your venture. And more importantly, when you're in college, you have legitimately 500 to 1,500 people around you that can act as your pool of test subjects for whatever product or service you come out with. It is a controlled group of people that you can interact with daily, that you know their tendencies. So if you want to go out and say, I'm going to market my product to blank amount of people, why not just market it to the people around you in college, get that feedback, and then use that to scale on, right? So the only reason I think people shouldn't go to college is A, if you can't afford it, which I have a lot of sympathy for, and B, if you have like a very clear alternative of what you want to do and you want to grow a business, not start a business. And that's the dialogue we need to be having.
So then when people talk to you about, pitching VCs or what you did during that time, what do you think made Trevor come to you? And then do you think you needed him to be taken seriously in that world? Or do you think your skills just by themselves, you could have gotten in the door and convinced people to give you funding? Because we are in a different era of entrepreneurship. Like like you can be 16 years old now and probably be taken seriously if you're articulate enough.
Yeah, totally. I agree. The people we were meeting, however, I think Trevor was very essential for. Like, these were high-end sports executives who we weren't even going to be able to get a meeting with if we didn't have a strong backer. I do, however, think that if I got in the room with someone, I can convince them an idea that I really believe in, irrespective of who else is around me. At the same time, though, I think one thing to say on this point is the way that Trevor found me was not by luck, but more by me positioning how I got lucky, right? Like, it was legitimately me taking the time to set up a really good profile. By the way, it was Instagram. At that time, I had maybe 2,000 followers or something. Like, I did not have a big Instagram account. I was posting terrible photos of myself. I wasn't glamorous about the way I shot my videos or photos or whatever. Like, all I did, however, is keep on putting out content and, more importantly, trying as much as possible to just build my brand around a bio. So bio, not like too serious, but a bio that portrayed accomplishments I had, things I had done and things I wanted to do. And any person reasonably, if you constantly put yourself in a position to be lucky, commenting on influencers' pages, going and interacting with micro-influencers, building content with them, doing podcasts, trying to share your story on LinkedIn, if you keep on doing that, people will eventually listen and they will pay attention to you. And at the end of the day, once you get that meeting, that's where you have to shine. And that's what I think a lot of people forget is I didn't just get Trevor because he DM'd me. I also got him because when we met, I was able to sell him on something. And that took a lot of guts and balls and things like that.
Yeah, so obviously you're articulate when you speak, but what do you think Trevor saw in your profile that was like, I've got to DM this kid?
I don't know. I mean, that would be a really cool question to ask him. Like, when I asked him, he was just like, I saw your comment on Gary's page. Because the story goes is I commented on Gary V's picture he put out, describe yourself in one sentence. I had met him about 4 months before he made that post. And I was just like, I'm the best young entrepreneur you've ever met. And I was joking about that, but he liked it. And a couple of other people from the quote unquote Vayner Nation liked it. And it came up as a top comment. So I think that's how he found me, but I don't know. I also think when I met him, I feel like a lot of young entrepreneurs are a bit, not cocky, but they think that their idea is the be all end all, this idea will revolutionize the world and change it. And I was very reasonable about my goals. I'm just hey, this idea would be kind of cool. You guys suffer from injuries. You guys have the fear for injuries. I could potentially do something to at least marginalize the impact of that. Want to try it out with me? Done. Yeah.
So you're doing that and you're building this company, but you're also in school and you're also speaking at this time?
Yeah, still speaking at that time and also part of debate.
Okay, so as far as the speaking goes, are you mostly talking about think I told you before we started, I watched your TEDx on social entrepreneurship. Is that mostly what you're speaking about, or now are you moving into more speaking about general entrepreneurship?
No, it's more social entrepreneurship still. I feel like I'm only comfortable talking about things I have experience with. So my high school career was only social ventures. So I mainly talked about that. I talked about my experiences traveling. I talk about my experiences debating, because debating really helps you, especially when it comes to like meeting people from various cultures at international events and stuff. So I talked a lot about that type of stuff. And then, yeah, like I had a component maybe of where I talked about general entrepreneurship, like things of whether to go to college or not. The question about how to balance time, which I think is like the question I get the most now. And also the question about when you're picking an idea, how do you go about planning it out and then executing on it, which I had a very clear regimented approach to that, which is don't spend a lot of time planning, write your idea down, immediately get feedback from people who are dead honest with you, and then try it out on a very small level. Like there's no excuse now for people not to try their ideas out, especially if you're trying to build an app. Go to envision.com, build a simple prototype. I'm a humanities student and I figured it out. If you want to build a service, go to your condo, go down 2 floors, ask people, knock on doors and ask them whether they would buy that product or whether they would try and maybe come on board for a trial run on your service. There's just real no excuse right now when to like try an idea out that you have at a very small scale and get feedback immediately that you can work to not only adapt the idea, but figure out whether you want to keep on going with it or not.
Well, as far as social entrepreneurship goes, what causes are you passionate about right now? I know your mother is followed by Justin Trudeau, so you obviously have deep political connections.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like 3 main topics I'm quite interested about. One is mental health. Especially on university campuses, I saw this firsthand. I had friends who suffer from mental health illnesses. And it's a tough thing, especially in university where you are separated from your family. In many cases, you're in a new city, you have to find new friends. It can be daunting and hard, especially on not only your physical health, because you have to like go and manage school and a number of different things there, but also on your mental health, which is really hard for people to see through, right? I mean, I don't like bringing this up, but the lead singer from Linkin Park, I mean, there are videos coming out about Chester, and like 2 days before, a day before, he looked so happy. Then he committed suicide, and it shows that mental health is something that we don't talk about. But not only that, we don't understand it. It's not like if you see someone sad, they're suffering from mental health. Sometimes the happiest people can sometimes be the saddest people within. And it's something I learned firsthand as well, just from having friends who had to go through that. So that was one thing. The second thing was youth in general, like getting them more involved early on. Like I love getting young people involved in politics. Doesn't just mean like every politician's like, I'm going to protect youth because they're trying to pander to the youth vote, but they don't really do shit for young people and they don't bring them into their campaign. So part of the thing I did, especially in high school, was set up a program where I got like a number of my municipal politicians to come into schools, to come speak there, not only to get young volunteers, but get young people to come in and talk to them about their campaign and what they could do to really cater to young people. Like A, get their needs onto a platform, and B, reach out to them with like various initiatives. And then the third and final issue I said I really like talking about is, in general, the idea of social ventures and how I feel like a lot of people think immediately like, oh, you're a social venture or you're a nonprofit, you can't make revenue, and how that's absolutely BS. Like social ventures do not entail not making profit. It's more of a focus and a different focus altogether than conventional businesses. But some of the biggest social ventures make some of the most amount of money, right? Like Kiva is a microfinancing organization where somebody like you can finance a woman in Uganda who wants to be able to build a well right beside her house.
I love
like
Kiva.
That's incredible, right? And like their annual transactions beat, like at 1 year, I remember like 4 or 5 years ago, it beat PayPal. And it was insane. It was insane. So I'm like, these types of ventures do exist. It's just about getting over the stereotype that a social venture can't accrue revenue.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about what you've done on social. When did you start posting content on social, and when did you begin thinking about it in a strategic way?
I started on social media, well, technically when I was like 9 years old. I think that was against the terms and limits in Facebook or whatever. So yeah, like 9 years old. And then I resented Instagram. Like I had friends of mine who were girls on Instagram, and I'm like, oh, it's such a BS platform. You post photos of your nails and stuff. Like, I was just a really douchey kid at that time. And I was like, no, like, I'm not on Instagram. I also don't like Twitter. Like, why would I need Twitter? I can just talk to my friends. So I was very much like against all these platforms. I had a LinkedIn profile because, of course, I was a huge, like, ambitious kid, wanted to continuously meet people and professionals. So that was the only reason I had LinkedIn. But I really started taking every social media platform a little more seriously about 2 years ago. So like legitimately probably about 10 years after I started social media, I started taking it a bit more seriously. And what I did is on Facebook, I keep it very personal. I don't post a lot. I don't sell things. I don't really comment too much either. I mainly only tell people what I'm up to. If there's any cool accomplishments I have, I share those. If there's any issue I want to back, I talk about those. But I keep it very chill and very personal because I have a majority of people on my Facebook are my friends. So I don't want to like bore them with stuff in my professional life. Sorry. And then beyond that, for Instagram and for LinkedIn, started taking that a lot more seriously 2 years ago, and only because I started speaking a lot and I wanted to get more people to hear what I could talk about. So that was the main drive behind really taking those platforms seriously.
So what do you want people to take away from your LinkedIn at this point?
It's community building. Like, honestly, the thing that people should take away from my LinkedIn, especially if you go through my past posts, is I'm not the type of person to rave about my views. I'm not the type of person to care about how many people are commenting, but I will legitimately acknowledge every single comment I get. I will try to interact with as many people as possible, and I will try to facilitate discussions as much as I can on any topic that interests me. That's all about community building, because the way I look about it is like the people right now who are raving about their reviews and shit, within 2 years, they're going to be gone if they don't change. If they continuously try to just do things for themselves and be like, I got X amount of views on these many days. Like, if they continuously do that, which is perfectly fine, like do whatever you want on social media. I'm not the god of social media, right? But I think within 2-3 years, their audience is going to go away because their audience wants to be part of a community. They don't want to be part of a system where they have to follow somebody raving about their attention. They want to be part of the system where they feel valued for just being a part of that person's life. It's a difference between having a friend and having an acquaintance. If you constantly rave about how many people you have within your network that are your acquaintances, no one gives a shit. If you talk about how many people in your network are truly your friends that will pick up your phone when you call them, that will come out to an event that you host, a lot more people will care about that because that's sustainable.
So when you think about your community, who is the ideal community member? Like, who are you trying to attract?
Well, I mean, I hate to say this, but generally anyone that cares about the things I care about and also are willing to like push my knowledge on topics that I'm just crappy at. So right now, very interested in learning more about blockchain. I briefly know about it, of course, but I'd love to get more people who are really interested in that to comment on my stuff because I'm trying to learn from the comments. And then the second big thing is learning more about politics, especially within the American system, because I grew up within the Canadian system. I wanted to learn more about like what people think about the next couple of years and how that system is going to progress. So I know LinkedIn is maybe not for politics, and I don't really post too much in this the form of political discussion because I don't like alienating people. But at the same time, if you want to connect with me and send me a message and you're interested in those two things in particular, that would go a long way.
So do you post things on LinkedIn that are personal, that are obviously you're authentic on the platform, but do you keep it pretty strictly professional?
No, I mean, I think compared to other people, for sure not. I mean, I post about like truffle fries a lot because I have like this deep dying love for them. I only ate truffle fries for the first time like 2 weeks ago, and it blew my mind. I legitimately was like, how do people not have this every day of their life? And then I figured out like why, because I got a stomach ache after I like downed an entire bag. But anyways, the truffle fries, I post a lot about puns and jokes and stuff. And I do videos, of course, meetups. Like I'm very informal in the meetups. I try to get people to come out, have fun, drink, eat, whatever. So yeah, I would say compared to other people, like I'm not a job seeker, right? So I can do whatever the hell I want on LinkedIn and people wouldn't find me annoying, because the number one thing that people find annoying on LinkedIn is when someone posts a status being like, I am looking for a job. And people are like, scroll right through. Like, we don't care.
Yeah, I actually had somebody left a comment on one of my LinkedIn posts recently that they were sad at how LinkedIn is turning more into an Instagram, Facebook, everyday content profile. And I just disagreed with that. I think that it shouldn't be a place where, I mean, yes, I want to post content that's related to my professional life. And everything that I post on there for the most part has been related to my professional life. I think actually everything I posted is related to my professional life. But I think that there's a place to show your personality there. It shouldn't just be a place to go and search resumes. So I thought that person, in my opinion, had it wrong. But I look to you as an example of that, where you actually use it as kind of a Facebook or even an Instagram.
Yeah. And of course, I know where there's a limit. You know, you don't want to talk too much about like, today I played soccer. Like, no one cares, Steve. No, but at the same time, like, I think there is always, like, work makes up 85% of our life, right? And we're not talking about high level work sometimes. We're talking about the little things that annoy us or make us happy. And I feel like we need to have an outlet to be able to talk about that, which is why I like LinkedIn. Another reason why I like LinkedIn is you can talk about your failures in a very open way. You do that on Facebook or you do that on Instagram. I've heard this from friends and I feel like it's true. There's a very big chance that people, when they see you like talking about how crappy your day was, or like how you were like victim to like maybe sexual harassment in the workplace or whatever, they just see it as you whining, or they see you as potentially just depressed and they move on. They don't really sympathize as much with it, as opposed to on LinkedIn, where it's a platform for people to talk about their treatment in the workplace, their conditions, their work goals. Everything is very situated around your work, but more importantly, it's also not just about the work that you're doing, but how you feel when you're at work. And that's the element that I think people miss out on, being very personal. That's why I like the hashtags like Let's Get Honest, which we started, like getting people to talk about their vulnerabilities. I like the trending hashtag right now, Not On My Resume, like talking about things that aren't on your resume you would want people to know about you. Those are the types of things that people generally will take a look at and be like, damn, I'm interested. Now let me go into their profile and see all the cool stuff they've done in their professional life.
So then what are your top tips for people who want to get active on LinkedIn now?
Top tips, 3 things. 1, post 3 times a day to start off with. And a lot of times people take this and they're like, I'm going to be spammy. And it's like, don't be spammy. Do it authentically. If you can't think of 3 posts, don't force it. But the 3 posts generally that I started off posting with, one thing that's inspirational. It could be a quote you like. It could be a story of your friend. It could be the story of your neighbor. It could be a story of a person you don't even know, but you love their story. I use Jack Ma a lot because I love him. He's so funny. He's the coolest CEO, in my opinion, in the world. The second is something that's informative. So an article that you like, but don't just share the Forbes article and be like, great, I've contributed to people's lives. Share the Forbes article and provide commentary on what you liked about it, right? Give commentary on why you shared it, what you took away. Include an excerpt maybe of your favorite quote from the article and put it in. The third thing, and the most important thing, is a personal anecdote. Try as much as possible to reflect on your week, reflect on your month, reflect even on your day, and try to take something that is tangible that you think you have learned from, or disappointed you, or made you feel better, and share that with the world. And try as much as possible in that time to provide a discussion question so people can relate to your experience and can start commenting their experiences as well, and you can start building that community. The second big thing to do on LinkedIn, try to connect with as many micro-influencers as possible. So people like me, Michaela Alexis, Josh Spector, whoever it is, connect with us, engage with our content, start taking a look at the people we follow, start taking a look at the people who follow us, and build a community around those people, right? The number one thing that people can do, especially if they're young, is start a podcast or have an interview series on LinkedIn, because it's so easy to cross-pollinate your audience with their audience. And it's so easy for that type of cross-pollination to occur, especially on LinkedIn. Third and final thing is, when you're going about LinkedIn, please treat it as a platform that, of course, is incredible in the sense of the amount of people you can meet, the amount of opportunities that are out there. But the small things really, really matter on LinkedIn. So if you are going and interacting with people, they're messaging you, think about ways that you can provide them value, right? Maybe you can connect X person to Y person, boom, that person is going to be a follower for life. They're going to be indebted to you. They're going to care about what you have to say. Think about coming on a 5-minute conversation with someone that messages you, asking them a question, being like, how did you do blank? And you're like, let's get on a 5-minute call and I'll give you the personal touch. Third thing you probably should do is think about maybe putting out a consulting session, right? If you're doing well on LinkedIn, take 15 to 20 minutes out of your week or your day and sit down with someone and teach them what to do on LinkedIn and how to be able to grow their presence there. The small things matter. That's how you build a community, one follower at a time.
Yeah, something you said actually sparked something in my head. I think it's way easier to add value to someone or figure out how to add value to someone via LinkedIn versus other social platforms? Because I'm sure you get these messages too. I'll get a message on Instagram or I'll get something on Facebook, and it's just asking, how can I give you value? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know what you do. I don't know anything about you. I don't know what you even know about me. This is already too much work. I think on LinkedIn, if you follow someone enough, it's actually a really good place to see what they're posting about, see what they're talking about. If there's a pain point, then you know where you can actually add value. And then you reach out, not asking how I can add value. You actually tell them how you can.
Yep. I love that. Yeah. You can see their profile. You know exactly what they're interested in. You can go to their recent activity and see what they're posting about. So yeah, I 100% think so.
And it definitely doesn't have that creepy vibe that, sliding into the DMs does on other platforms. It's like, okay, this has the facade of professionalism.
I mean, kind of though, but at the same time, you got to watch out. Like, I know a lot of people, especially females in my network, have been complaining about like weird people getting into their messages on LinkedIn, being like, yo, you want to work with me and stuff like that. And it's so dumb, but hopefully those people will get reported and then banned.
Yeah, that's a problem just across every industry, unfortunately. But at least you can try to block them.
That is true. And it will be successful.
Okay, so you mentioned before time management. We're going to talk about your work with Dunk, but basically, how are you managing your time? How do you manage your time with content creation? Or is it kind of a system where you're like, I know I'm posting 3 times a day, so social doesn't eat up as much of your time as your other work and school?
Yeah. I mean, I don't post 3 to 5 times a day anymore. I honestly, on LinkedIn, I'm very spontaneous. When I think of something, I post it. So I'm legitimately sometimes in the shower and I run out being like, I gotta post it. Like I take my towel and I wrap myself and I do the post, it's weird. And then there are other times where I can't think of a post that day. And so what do? I go online, find a quote I really like and share it and credit that person. Simple, right? Like if you can't think of your own content, share someone else's. So that's one thing I definitely do for LinkedIn in particular. But generally, time management wise, the simple thing I do is I have a calendar. I do try to follow it, but a lot of times it goes to hell, right? Especially after 2 p.m., like you've eaten lunch or like, crap, I missed 4 meetings while eating lunch, damn it. So like you're going to have to try to make up that time somewhere. So one thing I definitely do is audit myself, make sure that like if I'm spending too much time doing one task, I can come back to it another day and it's not a priority, forget about it. Set priorities for yourself for a week, for your day, and for your month. Try to be as strict on yourself to be able to reward yourself for hitting each priority, and then also like not punishing yourself for not hitting the priority, but making sure that you have somebody who's keeping you accountable. For me, that's Elliot. If I don't do work for Dunk, he's going to get mad at me. If he doesn't do work for Dunk, I'm going to get mad at him. It's really perfect. It's about having that honest relationship with somebody else. And then the next thing after that is finding your most productive time slot. Every person, in my opinion, has a productive time slot. It could be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. The problem in the world we live in today is everyone preaching this 24/7 hustle mentality, and it's absolutely BS. Nobody could legitimately do that. And even if you could, I can guarantee your quality of work wouldn't be as good as if you took 16 hours in the day, slept for 8, spent 10 hours out of that 16 working, and maybe spent the rest chilling, relaxing, letting your mind go and letting your body rest. So what I would suggest is take a look at your day. Like this is something you could do even tomorrow. Reflect on your day and see, hey, when is my mind the chippiest? What the hell type of word was that? Sorry. When is your mind the most focused? I don't know why I thought chippy and I'm like chippiest. Anyway, when is your mind the most focused? And when do you feel like you can do a lot? Like when do you feel really, really active?
When's your
normally
best time?
what you can do then is block that time off. For me, sadly, it's 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Yeah, 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Very, very regrettably. It just means that I wake up at 10 and I get 7 hours instead of 8. It's fine with me. But at the same time, like I find 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. is the best time. I know I don't really have to block it off because who else is really going to come in my way. But like if you have a time block that is like 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., make sure nothing else comes during that time. Don't go and do Pilates during that time. Spend your time at work, at home, doing things that you think will be able to get you ahead on your priorities list. That doesn't just mean work related. It also means personal life, right? Like if you have to like do a wedding for your cousin or something, I don't know. Like I just, if you have to do something, you have to buy a gift for your best friend, do it that time, right? Like figure out your priorities, both personal, professional, put it together and find your productive time slot.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. And something to go back to something you said about if you can't think of a quote or you can't think of something to post, you'll go post someone else's content. I think it's good to point out that works across the board. That works on Instagram. You find something that works with your aesthetic that you like, you repost it, you give them credit. That way you keep posting. Works with Facebook. It works with quote retweeting. That's just great advice.
I mean, it's a simple way. Like that's what Elliot, when he started getting on LinkedIn, he was like, it's so easy to do shout for shouts here. I can just quote someone, their audience will see it, and they'll also like that I shared their post. I'm like, yeah, that's the benefit of LinkedIn and any platform for that matter is you can just share someone else's content. So
talking about Dunk then, can you describe your role specifically? And do you touch any of the content creation or you don't?
So I briefly right now do, but I'm starting to get a lot more into it. I'm not managing any of the accounts. We have hired people for that. But my role basically as like a COO/co-founder legitimately is structuring out every single day, making sure we're constantly going and doing meetings, reporting back. And then beyond that, really working on client acquisition and fundraising right now. So we're trying to close a round, which will be great if we're able to do it by the end of this month. We have a couple of leads. We want to make sure we're getting really, really good potential there. And once we do that, it's really just about me like figuring out like, here are the clients we're going to go after. Here are the things we have to get done. And then one thing also, which is like my side thing that I have to do is like keep Elliot orderly. He's the type of person who is so smart, but his mind fires like 14 different places at once. And so I need to make sure he stays organized, stays managed. Sometimes I'll even help him. Like if I need to get on call with him and structure out his thoughts and provide him that like document, I'll do that. So I can really be that like
the
yin to yang, if you will. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned his nicknames because I legitimately call him a different name every time I do see him.
Yeah.
Rob, Dunk, Elliot, and I'll try something different every time, but he responds every time.
Yeah. You could call him E, you could call him Elliot. I'm just going to keep trying things until he doesn't respond.
So the Dunk brand is very different from, talked about this before, a personal brand.
Yep.
What have you learned about growing an Instagram account and relating that to your brand now on LinkedIn, and just tips generally on the Instagram business versus other businesses?
Yeah. I think there are two things. One is like, I think Instagram is very easy to provide content and then immediately get really good analytics on it. LinkedIn, especially for LinkedIn right now, like the analytics feature is crap. I don't really learn anything from it. I'm just like, oh, great, these many views. That's really it. And like maybe 2 people at TD Bank saw it. It's like, great, thank you for telling me that. Not really a lot of value in the analytics on LinkedIn, but on Instagram, you can see, especially with like the new stories that came out, if you add a sticker, you can see how many people clicked on it. You have a very, very direct way of seeing impressions, reach, being able to see where they're from, getting a really good breakdown of your audience. That's one thing I've learned a lot, to be able to take that insights and include it on my own Instagram page and being able to figure out like, hey, who's following me? What areas are they from? Then I'm starting to go and research the news within those areas and trying to be able to put out content that might relate directly to them. So a lot of people in my audience, no surprise, tend to be from Canada. So I always, even though I'm in New York, I have to stay in touch with Canadian news and what's going on there, because I love being able to use my stories as a way to inform people of what's going on and also to humor them, but also just inform them like, hey, this is what's going on with Jagmeet Singh being the first non-white person to win a leadership race at a major Canadian political party, like woot. Like I'll talk about those types of things. The second big thing from Instagram that I've learned is primarily like the whole shout for shout business, like paying people to like feature your profile in their story. I was just like, wow, that's such a brilliant idea. Like, I wish I knew about this 5 years ago or 6 years ago, because I feel a lot of young people can make a killing off that. You know, you grow a brand even to 10,000 followers, I guarantee you can monetize that. You can go out and get people to pay you just to feature their brand on your story. And of course, you can be selective and see which ones are applicable and which ones aren't. But I'm just like, I'm shocked by how many young kids are running Instagram accounts and are absolutely crushing it.
Does he shit on LinkedIn still, or now he's...
No, he's on board. He's on board with LinkedIn. You're going to see a lot more from Elliot on LinkedIn. He's actually starting to post a bit of basketball highlights, which surprisingly did well on his first post. I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting. But yeah, like he's awesome because he has such a competitive mentality. I think he's directly competing with me right now for like traction and followers, which I'm like, great. You know, I need somebody in my direct network who believes in LinkedIn and is also willing to compete with me directly. So I'm excited. He's definitely on board with that.
So as far as the space, just in general, who influences you? Whose content are you looking at? Who do you follow? on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, wherever?
So Twitter, like nobody. Actually, maybe one. Nick, Nick Sharma, of course. Mm-hmm. I know where he gets his tweets from, but they're so inspirational. I love that. So I love his tweets.
Shout out to Nick.
I love Nick. Yeah, he's a great guy. For Snapchat, not really anyone. I don't really go too much on that platform anyways. I mainly just syndicate Instagram stories and put it onto Snapchat. For Instagram, I used to be a big follower of, two people in particular. One was Gary, which I don't really follow his content too much anymore. So I feel like it's not for the person who's already moved on and started something and is very much down the funnel. I think he's doing a great job of motivating people to get started, but it's just not my type of content that really resonates with me anymore. And then the second is a guy called Julius Dean on Instagram, who I had the pleasure of talking with over messages recently. He's a magician. He's a kid. He's literally like 22, 23 years old, goes around the world just doing magic tricks and putting it on Instagram. I love the way he's building his community though. Like almost every comment within the first 10 minutes are responded to. I'm like, that's fantastic. Like you're making people directly want to comment first so they can get a response. It's what Gary did with that 60-second club or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Just trying to get people to like immediately blow up his post early so that he can respond to them. So those are two people on Instagram. LinkedIn, honestly, like no one. But I really do not follow. Like I think there's so many people now who are like posting the same crap over and over again. The only person I would say that really inspires me and continues to inspire me, she got me going on LinkedIn, was Michaela Alexis, who I finally met for the first time like 2 weeks ago when we went to the LinkedIn office and we spoke together and stuff. So that was really fun. But she's so unique. She posts like once every week maybe. And then even when she does post, like she posts about coffee cups and stuff like that. So she's awesome. So I think she's perfect. And that was like the one type of person I would say on LinkedIn. Other than that, it's everyone who's just posting about like something bad happened in my life. And they start off with this like dramatic post and then they move on. It's not really fun.
So then what do you think makes someone influential?
Someone influential, I think generally two things. Hi, Mo. How's it going? I'm on a podcast. That's going to be great. You should definitely keep that in.
Yeah.
What makes someone influential? I think two things. One is the desire to not get the status of influencer from yourself, but from other people. I think that drive, that motivation, that hunger to be able to impact people directly and to be able to go and like make someone feel better, make someone feel informed, make someone feel inspired is what really like drives someone as an influencer. I think the second big thing to come out, like how do you have influence? I think it's about taking all of the things you do on social and then doing it in the physical world as well. So the only way I was really able to tell my influence and my impact was when I started doing LinkedIn meetups and started getting people to come out and being like, wow, I really follow your content. Like, it's really cool. It's what keeps me going, that type of stuff. That feels good. But at the same time, it gives you credit from the people you're trying to impact directly. And it gives you validation for what you're doing when you bring it into the physical world.
Well, that's awesome. And you're so well spoken, and I'm really excited to see what happens with you in the future, because I'm sure between the ages of 20, I can't even say 20 to 25, what you're going to do. Like 20 to 22, I just know you're going to kill it. Where can people find you?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn. So Manu Goswami, ManuGoswami. And then Facebook, Snapchat, and Twitter is at GoSwish, GOSWISH. And yeah, that's kind of the platforms to reach me on. Reach out. I don't bite. I'm a nice guy. If I don't respond to you once, I will respond to you if you nag me. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Beyond Influential. If you found value in this week's episode, please rate and subscribe on iTunes. I'd love to know who you find influential. You can let me know on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Brittany Crystal, KRYSTLE, or visit my website, brittanycrystal.com.
Beyond Influential.